Hello and welcome to the Right Click Save podcast. I'm your host Calcio, joined as always by my fellow host Jimmy T. How are you today, Jimbo?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm glad to be recording again after a little bit of a break and excited to get into this project.
I'm really pleased because today we're joined by Jonathan Ludwig, the co-founder and CEO of FANTium, which is a fantastic up-and-coming sports project. Obviously for us, big sports fans, and it's always nice to see a Web3 CEO and founder approach the space with positivity and with sport in mind. Jonathan, how are you today?
No, I'm great. Actually, I'm very excited to speak to you today and share more about what we are building with the FANTium.
I think what's really awesome about the project from my point of view is that we are looking at trying to find something which is a bit different, and I'll give you a moment to actually explain the project. But for us, what we really liked about it was that it wasn't just another here's some sports celebrities who might be a bit interested in Web3. The approach that you guys have gone for is really to make sure they're engaged. For our viewers and audience that are not familiar with the project, could you give us a little summary about what FANTium is and how it works?
No, 100%. And I agree with you, right? So, and I think it's also given the times, I think we are in the stage now with the, technology and the whole blockchain space where now you started to see the next, super cool use cases using the technology to build something like really meaningful. And yeah, super excited, super pumped to, for the next years. And what we do with FANTium is we are using the blockchain technology, in particular the technology behind NFTs, to enable basically sports as a tokenization, right? And this means for athletes, and this is our first use case on the platform, that they can use our platform to tokenize their future earnings and make it investable basically to people passionate about the sports and people believing in them. And why this is so meaningful is that, and why is it so important? Because if you look at many sports, mostly individual sports, there are many sports where these sports are super expensive to be done early on. So it comes down for you as a young talent, not only about basically. It's not only about your talent, right? And basically, the amount you're willing to put into your career, but also your access to capital. And the FANTium, for the first time, they can use the platform now to raise money from people believing in them. So tokenize the future earnings, raise money with it. And then on the sports fan side, you can invest in athletes you believe in and participate in their long-term financial success throughout the career. So it's a little bit like startup or stock investing, but in the sports space for athletes and on the blockchain.
I love that. I think that's what got me most excited about when I saw your project was the fact that the sports person was allowed to then invest in themselves from sort of the capital that they could raise. I think that's what really stood out for me because it kind of narrows that gap between people that are wealthy and people that are talented.
Exactly. So we say the vision, we have with FANTium is that we believe in a world where everybody can own their success, right? So it's really not basically dependent on who you are, meaning kind of what kind of background you have. Like, do you have rich parents, right, who can kind of early on support you, like finance the sport and etc. So it should really come back basically to the talent and the amount of work you're willing to put into your career, right? And that should kind of be the determined factor for success. And basically today, right, this is not the case for many sports. And we believe with blockchain as a technology enabler and NFTs and the smart contracts behind NFTs, it will become very easy for these young athletes to make this decision, right? That, to give away like a certain percentage of their future earnings. And just by that, raising the capital they need in order to make it to the top. Yeah, so very excited to build that. Obviously, it's still very early, but again, now you're seeing like these really cool use cases popping up, which use the technology behind NFTs and the blockchain overall to enable basically these things.
I was looking into one of the drops that you've already had, Felix, and as part of Tennis Player, as part of it, he had sort of 25 gold passes, which enabled one of the investors to then be able to train with him. And I thought that's a really cool element to the project, that kind of extra engagement that you get to have with the athletes. From your kind of initial setting up the project and coming up with it, how integral was that to it, and how much do you guide the sports people on what kind of things to include?
Yes, I mean, in the end, like what FANTium is, we are just the platform, right? The technical, we provide the technical infrastructure also from a regulatory point of view to enable athletes to do these kind of things. However, obviously, especially in the beginning, like we are a close partner, so we are consulting basically the athlete what we believe would be good to implement and to offer basically to the audience. Because we believe always in this like combination that, you want to invest in things you have a passion for. And then it's not only about the return you might potentially get out of it in a few years. It's also about basically like this whole completely new bond you can form but directly with the athlete you believe in and you support, right? And that's why also with NFTs, obviously, you can not only say, look, I'm going to participate in with that share in the future earnings. You can also include these like super cool fan perks, like the ones you just mentioned, the hitting session with the athlete, etc. The private chat with the athlete, right, where you can chat with the athlete, you get like certain exclusive content from the tournaments, etc. So these things in combination, I think it's really about that what makes FANTium so special, and why people are also using it.
For me, I'm a massive football fan, and one of the biggest things I've had the privilege of experiencing in recent months is when I've gone to a couple of games. I'm a big Newcastle United fan. I've been given shirts by players and actually felt like a little bit of interaction, and I mean like a small amount, because obviously there's thousands of other fans in the stadium and it's mad, right? But that's been an amazing experience for me in a snippet. So the ability for someone that's really passionate about tennis to potentially be able to go, okay, cool, well, I do have a paywall here. I do have to pay for it, but that's fine. I can actually just choose to do that. It's guaranteed. I'm going to get utility out of it, and I can go and then do X, Y, and Z with a tennis player I admire. That's great. What I am wondering, though, is why you guys picked tennis. And I know you mentioned that it was an individual sports basis that you were looking at. Was there any reason you started with tennis?
Yeah, a big reason. Like I'm a big tennis fan.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. I like tennis too. Kelsey doesn't seem to like tennis.
I'm just a one-dimensional man. I love football. Tennis is cool.
We're gonna get there. No, I mean that's definitely one of the reasons, right? But there are also other reasons, and football. Obviously, I'm a big football fan as well. So this was basically the main reason.
Yeah.
Generally, like how we look at sports is we always look, on the fundraising need, like how expensive, how much does it cost to do that sport early on? So is there a fundraising need? Is there a financing gap which has to be filled by somebody? So that's number one. And then we look at also at the popularity, right? So how popular is the sport at the very top? I mean, tennis has this like unique structure that it is expensive to be done early on. Yeah. Even if you're one of the best young talents in your age group, you are struggling financially. Yeah. So there is this like financing need. And then at the end, it's the most popular individual sport. But that's just a starting point. So we launched in tennis and now we're going to expand to other sports.
I think it definitely makes sense to me. I think individual sports are where the athletes need that sort of extra investment and where they can really take the benefit, as you described. So yeah, tennis makes sense. What other sort of key kind of individual sports are you sort of targeting next, or do you have like a plan of rolling into how you're going to approach the rollout into other sports?
Yeah, so we are constantly looking and assessing basically the next sports, and the plan is actually to expand to another sports in the next couple of months. So we are having conversations with different kind of stakeholders. Obviously, from the individual sports, you look at golf, obviously very close to tennis. You look at MMA, super fascinating.
I was about to say UFC, kind of, that'd be a great one, like boxing, MMA, UFC, that kind of stuff would work really well, I think.
Exactly. Racing is another one. And in the end, we're going to include also the community, right? So that, we want to find out, what the community really wants, because, it's a Web3 project, right? So it's all about the community and that's something now we are kind of preparing.
I like it. One of my good friends plays a lot of the like football stocks game, where it's like you're not actually investing, it's just a game. Actually, I think there is one where you can pay to do it, and this is like football the real world. Yeah, Football Index. That's it. This is like the real world version of Football Index. That's why, because it's like you are actually, the money's going to the player. That's what I really like about it.
Yeah, and football, this is actually it's a very good example, right? So because it's different, right? When you compare it to these like virtual in investing platforms. Obviously, they always have this risk that if it doesn't work out and the platform doesn't work out, then you're left with nothing. And Football Index
Yeah.
actually
That's what
went
happened.
south.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what happened exactly, and that's a big difference from when you compare to our model. Even if FANTium maybe was not there to succeed, or basically we had to shut down for whatever reasons the platform. These, because of the smart contracts and this
Yeah.
NFT asset-backed investing, these contracts are still valid, right? So you wouldn't lose anything because the contract you are engaging with, it's directly with the athlete. So even if the platform is not there anymore, the NFTs and the smart contracts are on the blockchain and enforceable.
It's the glory of NFTs.
What I like about it as well, though, is that one of the biggest problems we've got with the NFT market at the moment is blur, wash trading, shield bids, all that crap that people are basically just flooding the market with in order to get personal benefit, but without really being interested in the product that they're engaging with. I think your product is unique in the sense as one of the few where realistically it isn't going to get targeted by those sorts of people. It's going to be people that are interested in actually being like, okay, cool, I'm really invested in X athlete and I want to know more about them. I want to get engaged. Have you found it? How have you found the process of actually getting players to come on board and be a part of the team?
Yeah, so I mean, on the player side, obviously it's a lot of education, right? So I mean, you have to explain because it's completely new what we do. So there is still a lot of explanation. However, obviously, as we are building the supply side of the platform, meaning onboarding more athletes, obviously, as easier it becomes to understand. So we already see like a lot of interest, and this is also because of this like inherent problem of athletes basically in these sports, right? That they are facing these financing struggles. So they have a high incentive to basically look for solutions and use us to as a fundraising tool. So there's a lot of it's education, but still we see a high interest. And then you have the other side, right? What you just mentioned, basically the different kind of communities, and the question is, okay, what's the right target audience for you? Is it the Web3 communities? Is it the flipping
Yeah.
community, right? Is it the sports fan? Yeah. Is it the betting community, etc.? And that's also very interesting to see and kind of to learn. Okay, what are the kind of needs and requirements of these like different types of communities?
I've also found, this is slightly off topic, but is relevant. Some of the best products and projects that we've worked with have been European products, right? So Metabrew, a German brand, absolutely love Metabrew. I'll talk about Metabrew till my eyes full of.
Big
The reason I
fan, yeah,
mention it
big
is,
fan too.
absolutely. The reason I mention it though is because I feel like, and I'm not shitting on the Americans, but I'm just being honest. I feel like that a lot of European products that we talk to, they come from an angle where they're not just saying, okay, let's just put another 10k PFP out that people are just going to, but people
We've
are
got
looking
those
for
too.
some. Well, sure, but my point is, if you actually think there's source, there's substance, and I
Yeah.
can actually go on board with this and go, even though I'm not a massive tennis fan, I go, okay, this is genuinely important and interesting use case. And if you did eventually look at football, then 100% it'd be something I'd invest in, it's something I'd be interested in. How do you guys actually see growth though? Because obviously, it's no secret that the NFT market is not what it was a year and a half, 2 years ago. It's still there, but it's nowhere near as thriving. Are you still confident that Web3 is the avenue that is best for this sort of product?
So yeah, so what I mean, we see the Web3 part and the NFT part as just the enabling factor, right? It's for us, it's like the operating system. So it's for us, it's not really a question about Web3 or Web2. Obviously, it comes down to the communities you're targeting, but in the end, we believe in the operating system, right, which allows us to for athletes to tokenize their earnings, kind of later automatically distribute the payouts, etc. So what we already see, and this was clear from the beginning, I believe that the hardcore Web3 NFT collector or flipper, right, who's looking for the easy quick gains. This is not the right community we are targeting, just because our NFTs are asset backed, right? So you already see on the platform we have around 10,000 users already. That 50% of those are actually Web2 users, yeah, just
Nice.
because they're not using MetaMask, so they're using a custodial wallet solution, and that's a good sign, right? Because that's 50%, that's 5,000 people we have already onboarded into
Yeah.
Web3, and I think that's it's a more sustainable approach, because in the end you have to find the right audience, which fits to the utility you're offering and the value of proposition. And in our case, that's sport, right? That's obviously investing. That's engagement. and kind of like this thrill to pick the right player and following that player and maybe also make a good return. That's, I'd say it's more about the Web2 space and the sports space, the sports audience than the Web3 audience.
And how does that affect your marketing? So how do you target your marketing? Because obviously that is often the biggest conundrum for this kind of project, working in Web3, where there's Web3 people that will invest, and it almost seems like an extra hurdle to also have to onboard someone as well as getting them to invest into your sort of project and your idea. How has that focused your marketing strategy?
Yeah, it's a good point, right? And it's still early, so we are still experimenting, and obviously, like we are not using like the classic Web3 marketing hacks of like heavily allow listing, etc. So because we believe it's also not the sustainable approach in our case. So we are constantly looking for like ways how to approach our community. I think what the right community and the right target audience. I think what helps in our case is obviously that's the product itself. So it's something completely unique and very innovative and maybe revolutionary, right? What we are onto. So we generate a lot of let's say cheap and like free audience and reach just because of the product itself. And then obviously we are using these like sports communities, including also the athletes who are on the platform, present on the platform. And but still it's very early. We also don't have this need to rush things. It's also an advantage of the current market, right? So that you can actually just focus on the product first and really focus on developing, and then kind of think about, okay, how can you now basically market the product and find the right audience for you.
I think it's interesting. It feels like to me it's like one of these things that could just like potentially snowball. So as you get more athletes that come on, when you get those people that go on to be really successful, then and people are like earning from having been an earlier investor and have all these stories about the extra engagement they've had along the way, that is just going to kind of snowball the platform into more agents, more managers, and then more players all sort of looking into it.
For the space overall, because I think it's more healthy, right? If it's not easy, so you really have to make sure you're building something which adds value, and then you have to figure out ways how to make a business out of it, right? And this is obviously different for a couple of years from now, where you could just maybe find the right communities and strike a deal, and then everything was basically going from there. But this is obviously not sustainable. So it requires a lot of work, right? Dedication and focus, and I think you will see the results in a soon time, and there will be great things coming out of that.
I guess like as you build more players on there, it does become like fantasy football in the end.
Yeah, it's this and also maybe this like combination. We always call it like the positive betting. Yeah. Because it's investing is a little bit like betting, right? But asset backed and you're doing something good with it, because obviously you're also enabling these athletes to make something out of their talent and achieve their dreams and follow the dreams. And so that's right. So, but it's obviously also, it has this connection to fantasy because it has this real world connection.
Yeah, no, I like it. Now, obviously this kind of project is like, must have been very tricky to set up and navigate the legalities of it. How has your approach been to that? Because I know it's a hot topic in the space always, around regulation and what approach people like the SEC take to kind of projects. So how have you navigated that in sort of setting up the project?
Yeah, no, that's a very important point, and we take it very seriously, right? And also before basically setting it up, I was investing a lot of time and money also like assessing the regulatory environment. And I think the answer is that, it's such a dynamic market where things are changing so quickly. We came to the conclusion now, it's obviously very important that you have the best possible legal setup in order to deal with these like dynamic regulatory changes, and also sometimes uncertain situations, like what does it mean actually to be a security in different jurisdictions, etc., etc. And that's what we do, right? So I mean, we have designed the platform, we believe, like in a way that it's already security compliant. So we're doing KYC, we're doing AML. If your wallet has interacted with Tornado Cash, you can't use the platforms. We're informing the users, basically the investors, about the potential risks basically of that investment. So we are already doing like a lot of work than other comparable projects in the space or in other industries. And then now basically it is in the next step, it is about basically becoming obviously security compliant and making sure you're security compliant and complying to regulations across different jurisdictions where you're operating the platform in. And that's obviously something we're following very closely. We're following what the SEC is doing in the US. We are following other jurisdictions. And I think generally what you see is obviously also because of the events we had right in the last year. That regulation is very fierce but it is also the dynamic environment.
Tell us a bit about your background, how you went from Web3 investor to Web3 founder.
Actually, it started actually before Web3, right? So I was a Web2 a founder. So I have a business background. I started my first company in 2012. So I've been in the tech ecosystem for the last 10 years. And then turned into like a Web3 angel investor in beginning of 2020. So did invest in a lot of different projects in the space for 2 years. And at one point though, kind of realized that this wasn't kind of fulfilling me, right? And I felt like this responsibility that to create something and develop something also out of this situation I was in, and to be in the driver's seat and to be responsible to kind of solve a problem, right, and make something out of what I had, and maybe also things I believe I'm okay at. And that's how it started with FANTium, right? Because I saw this problem in tennis, because I was playing so much and saw these talents basically struggling financially, and this is then how it started, and that was almost a year ago.
Nice, very cool. What would you say kind of the key differences between building something in Web 2 and Web 3 have been?
I think, for me personally, a lot has changed, right? So back then, first company was all about making money, and I think this is true for many other Web3 projects, but it wasn't, to be honest, it wasn't the driving force for this one. So for this one, for me personally, it was just just important to create something meaningful and build something good out of it. But like generally, when you compare Web 3, Web 2, obviously it's a lot about community, right? So we had already like a big community pre-launch, and that was just basically in the Web 3 space, just because of the technology of what we are up to. And that's something which wouldn't happen in the Web 2 space, where you launch a product first and then you acquire customers and you build the user base, etc. And this is a little bit upside down than in the Web 3 space, which is so cool because you can work together with the community.
I think it's definitely shown that how much the space has evolved, that we've going from these kind of quick kind of cash grab projects to more of these kind of passion projects and real utilization of technology. And it's what really the space has needed to evolve into for a long time. Are there any sort of what kind of projects got you interested in sort of NFTs and Web3 initially?
I mean, but for me, my journey started with Sorare. The fantasy soccer space. So I was very lucky. I was able to invest very early in Sorare. That was kind of my Web3 entry ticket, right? And then I saw a lot of great other projects coming out, and I'm like, obviously for me, I'm super passionate about the whole tokenization space. So and I believe in tokenization, that it will happen across different industries. So I'm very excited about the music space, where you have Royal or another block from Sweden, and that also happening in other industries. So I'm very closely following that, and that's kind of my next bet on the next in the big industry.
When you engage your kind of like the Web 2 crowd, I know this question is a little bit out of left field. When you engage the kind of Web 2 crowd, are you still using the kind of Web 3 terminology? Do you talk about NFTs or do you talk about tokenization? How has the kind of negative reputation of NFTs kind of affected the way that you marketed?
Unfortunately, we're not using NFTs so much. So we're still trying to find like a new terminology. But in general, we use tokens as basically a token as a share, or as a there's a kind of digital ownership of in something. So that's still wording. But we are not really marketing the Web3 aspect so much, and we are also not using NFTs, because it's just associated with like these very like bad developments.
And I rather a lot of sort of potential brand partnerships within the sports that you guys are looking at as well, because I can imagine like a big sportswear sponsor kind of thing, sort of partnership alongside you. Is that kind of avenue that you're exploring as well?
Yeah, generally, like obviously we are open to any kind of sort of partnership. We are looking for partners where our relevant audience is active and engaging. So and that can be very different depending on the sport. Obviously, in tennis this will be different than in MMA. So I was trying to basically strike these partnerships where we have this audience on one hand, and then we have a platform where we can actually explain and present what we do. Because it's so unique and it's so new that we need this like an explanation and description of what we're up to, what you can do with it. These are the type of partnerships we're looking for.
No, it's very cool. As I say, from the very beginning, it's just a project that interests me. I play a bit of tennis myself, so that kind of, and I watch a little bit. So when I first saw it, that kind of piqued my interest. And then the whole way to just have that extra engagement between a fan and the actual sports person. It's like, I quite like what was happening at Crawley Town Football Club. So Crawley Town, I don't know if you know about Crawley Town. They were...
Yes, of course, yeah.
Cool. So I live right next to Crawley Town. So the stadium's about 10-minute drive from my house. So I haven't actually been, but it's there. So I've been interestingly tracking the story, and I quite like the whole idea of giving that extra level of engagement for sort of fans of sport. And I think it works increasingly well. And people are already really passionate about sports. Now, if you're adding in this is why sports gambling is so good, because it kind of like exaggerates that. But if you've got this whole extra element, I think it's almost like it doesn't feel so much as a vice as gambling. Do you know what I mean? It's more of an investment, and I think it would appeal to a different demographic to the normal kind of gambling crowd as well within sports. But it kind of exaggerates that passion that people can have for watching their favorite sports stars.
Yes, and getting ownership, right? So like really owning something.
I just won the Champions League.
Exactly, I was part of it. I was a small piece here. I think this
that's very cool.
Something people want to have.
Yeah, that is the way that I could potentially win my first big trophy.
Exactly. I'm part of the team now. Yeah, you can. Yeah. Here's the proof. Here's my token.
Yeah, I got like a Ryder Cup or whatever. So yeah, it definitely works well with those kind of individual sports. I was also thinking racing is quite a good one as well. That's something that people need a lot of investment for early on if they actually want to make something of themselves within that sport.
No, racing, and it's incredible to see, right? If you look at these different sports, how many sports there are and how big these communities are, and how like many people have this like mutual share of passion in a certain sport. And personally, I believe this is like on a higher topic. I believe actually that sports have such an important role like in our society and in the world, because it provides this consistency on the one hand, but it also basically doesn't know any borders, doesn't know any religions, etc. So this is, I think, one of the reasons why people come together, and connect and watch the sport. So it's not only about the sport itself; it's also about basically connecting with everybody else who has this passion for the sport.
Yeah, I love it, and that is Web3, isn't it? Community, and it works so well. One thing we do ask everyone who comes onto the podcast to do, that talking about a project, is kind of sum up their project and why someone should take a closer look in a minute or less. Are you feeling up to that?
Yes, guys, you should definitely check out FANTium. Because of FANTium, we are making the world a better place by enabling basically everybody to own the success. And that means that athletes can use the platform to raise money from people believing in them. And then on the other hand, basically you can invest in people, in athletes you believe in, and connect with them in a completely new way and participate in their financial success. And we believe in a world where, again, everybody can own a success, and we want to make the world more equal. And we're looking forward to see you on the platform.
Nice. That was good. That was slick. I feel like you've done that before.
First time, I promise.
Probably a few times. The elevator pitch is always a good thing to have down. So yeah, Jonathan, it's been awesome having you on. Great to learn a bit more about FANTium. I know Kelsey has had a few technical difficulties towards the end of this recording. He's on a bit of a delay, so hasn't said too much.
Yeah, apologies. It's been an absolute pleasure to kind of listen to you guys chatting.
Yeah, no, thanks. It was great to be on the show. I really enjoyed the conversation with you, and looking forward to staying in touch and keep up the good work.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you very much. Any final words, Calcio?
Thank you. I'm hoping the delay has kind of come out there. But yeah, it's been a pleasure. This is the Right Click Save podcast. I'm your host, Calcio, joined as always by Jimmy T.
Delay.
They're now laughing, and I'm so confused because now they're laughing and I'm still talking about saying thank you, but the delay's so bad that I don't know what's going on. But yeah, awesome project, awesome product, awesome guy. Let's go and buy some FANTium.
Well, seeing as Kelsey is running about a minute behind everyone else, I'll close this off. So thanks for tuning into the Right Click Save podcast. We were your hosts, Jimmy T and Calcio, joined by Jonathan from FANTium. If you do want to check out more about their project, please use the links below. And as ever, none of our content is financial advice. NFTs and crypto investing is inherently risky, and you should always do your own research.